What's going on, YouTube? This is SG1 Sports, and you're watching our college football channel. We continue here with our 2023 predictions. The Oklahoma State Cowboys are up next. Let's take a look at some of the other predictions for Oklahoma State. The FPI has them at 7.5 and 4.6. Athlon has them at 7 and 5. The over/under is at 6.5. So that tells me this team is expected to finish anywhere from 6 and 6 to 8 and 4. That's kind of where these numbers line up. I think also I saw one over/under that was maybe just 6. You feel like this team is at least going to get to 6 wins, but you know, it's a team that if you looked at them back in January and you look at all the losses they had in the transfer portal, I was kind of thinking, you know, this is probably like a 5 and 7 team, probably a team that finishes near the bottom of the Big 12. But then you start really looking at the roster, looking at what they do bring back, and looking at some of the additions in the transfer portal, and you start to think, hold on, Oklahoma State might actually be pretty good. I don't think they're going to go anywhere. Mike Gundy's a great coach, so I expect this team to be right back there, you know, at least a bowl team this year. I don't know if they're going to contend in the Big 12 for the championship, but I do think they'll be a team that they won't be an easy out in this conference. You look at their roster offensively, it's interesting seeing Alan Bowman back in the Big 12. Of course, he was at Texas Tech, played pretty well at Texas Tech. Then he transferred off to Michigan after an injury. Didn't really see the field at Michigan. Coming back to the Big 12 here at Oklahoma State. Really interested to see how he plays. Expected to be their starting quarterback. I think he's going to do pretty well. They've got weapons around him. They got a really deep running back room, pretty solid at wide receiver. Offensive line looks to be pretty good, so this is going to be a good offense. Defense, I think, will be kind of average. Front seven looks to be pretty good. I think the secondary is going to be a concern, especially at that cornerback position. I feel like we say that about a lot of teams this year. When you look at these rosters, there are a lot of unproven players at the cornerback position. That is just a big area of concern for a lot of teams, I've noticed. So we'll see if that turns out. You know, that could mean we see a lot of passing yards this year. We saw a lot of passing yards a few years ago, and it seemed like it was kind of slowing down. The run game kind of coming back, defense kind of coming back in college football a little bit. But who knows? Maybe we see a lot of passing yards this year. I think this team's going to be solid. Let's get to the schedule. They get Central Arkansas first, and they have South Alabama in there. Of course, they should win those games. Arizona State's an interesting matchup. They're going to go on the road at Arizona State against a team that I think people are underrating a little bit. This is another team that brought in a lot of transfers. They got a couple of pretty good options at quarterback, and you just look at their entire roster with the transfers they've added. This is not going to be a terrible team. I think people just expect new head coach. They were bad last year. It's a complete rebuild. Well, with the transfer portal, it sometimes can go pretty quickly, and I expect Arizona State to be a competitive team this year in the Pac-12. I don't think they're going to be maybe in the top half of the Pac-12, but I think they'll be competitive. So I think this will be a really good matchup. But I do think Oklahoma State, with an experienced coach in Mike Gundy and a roster that I think is a little bit better still, it'll be tough. I'm telling you, this is not going to be a blowout. But I do think Oklahoma State's able to go on the road and win that game. And so with the other two non-conference wins, I think they start off 3-0. They'll play Iowa State on September the 23rd on the road. A pretty tough place to play. Good defense in Iowa State. You wonder, you know, what's going to win out, the offense for Oklahoma State, the defense for Iowa State. This is one I'm just going to go with home field advantage. I think Iowa State's able to get one at home. Big win for them. I think Oklahoma State's probably the better team. On a neutral field, I would take them, but on the road, I think that's going to be just enough for Iowa State to get this win. And then they'll play Kansas State. This will be a weeknight game at home. A big opportunity for Oklahoma State to knock off one of the top teams in the Big 12. I don't think they do it, though. I think Kansas State is just, they're a team that is going to take care of business in these types of games, even on the road. I just think the Wildcats too much. I think they beat Oklahoma State, and they drop the Cowboys to 3-2. After that, they'll play Kansas on October the 14th at home. This is going to be a high-powered Kansas offense, a lot of weapons. I think this will be a shootout, a typical old-school Big 12 game with a lot of points, a lot of passing, and I think it just kind of goes back and forth. It's one of those games where whoever has the ball last wins, kind of. I think Kansas probably actually a little bit better than Oklahoma State this year, but home field advantage going to Oklahoma State. and because of that, I'm going to pick them in a very close game to win it. So I could see Iowa State, Kansas. I could see those games flipping. Maybe they lose to Kansas, beat Iowa State, but either way, I think they split those two games. And again, 4-2 is the record at the halfway point. They go on the road to face West Virginia on October the 21st. This will be a game where West Virginia probably tries to slow it down a little bit, run the football. Oklahoma State's front seven, can they stop the run game for West Virginia? That'll be a big storyline in this game. I think West Virginia's defense is going to be, they'll play really well, especially at home. And I think, again, home field advantage might make the difference. I'm going with West Virginia to pull off a slight upset over Oklahoma State. They get Cincinnati the next week on October the 28th at home. Cincinnati won't be terrible, but they might be the worst team in the Big 12. I don't think there will be any bad teams in the Big 12, but Cincinnati, a team that's probably going to finish near the bottom of this conference, if not dead last. A lot of areas where they are rebuilding. They have some bright spots. Defensive line is going to be strong for them. We'll see what Emory Jones looks like at quarterback. So there are some good running backs. There are some bright spots for Cincinnati, but I think Oklahoma State's just too much. They're more of a complete team, and I'm going to go with the Cowboys. So 5-3. Then they'll play Oklahoma. Bedlam for the last time, at least for a long time. Play this game on November the 4th. Oklahoma State's going to really, really want this one. Again, Oklahoma's leaving the conference. Home field advantage going to Oklahoma State. I think Oklahoma's probably a better team, especially, did you look at the roster? Oklahoma does have a better roster. But Oklahoma maybe doesn't have those great receivers like they've had in the past, so maybe they're not able to just take advantage enough of the secondary for Oklahoma State. I do think it'll be close, very close, but I think Bedlam, for the last time, is going to go to the home team. Oklahoma State gets a big, huge win over Oklahoma in a slight upset. Then they'll play UCF the next week, November 11th, on the road. UCF going to have a high-powered offense. Oklahoma State's going to have, I think, a high-powered offense. So very similar to the Kansas game. A lot of points, a shootout, and we're going to go home field advantage just like we did in the Kansas game. So I'm going with UCF in this one. I definitely think they split between Kansas and UCF. And then they'll have Houston on the 18th. You look at Houston and their passing attack and their big receivers. I think this is a bad matchup for Oklahoma State. I think Houston's able to make a lot of big plays through the air. Plus, they're playing at home. I'm going to go with Houston to pull off maybe a slight upset. We'll see where the teams wind up at this point, but probably neither team ranked or anything. But I think Houston does get that win. And then they'll close things out at home against BYU. This should be a good matchup here. A pretty close game. I think BYU is also going to be in the bottom half of the Big 12, along with West Virginia and Cincinnati, some of these other teams. But they're playing at home. I don't know if BYU is going to have those great receivers that are able to take advantage of an Oklahoma State secondary that might not be that good. And I think Oklahoma State's going to score a lot of points. So I do like the Cowboys to get this win at home and finish out 7-5. So again, you go back to January, I was thinking maybe 5-7 for this team. Now I'm thinking 7-5, or maybe even 8-4. If they lose these 5 games, then they also lose to Oklahoma, which a lot of people I'm sure are going to say they'll lose that game. They could go 6-6, sure. I think that's probably about the worst case scenario, but I think they could maybe even pull off another win here. Maybe they beat West Virginia or Iowa State or UCF or Houston or even Kansas State at home. So I think 8-4 is definitely a possibility. I'm going right there in the middle at 7-5. That's my prediction. What's your prediction? Give me your thoughts on Oklahoma State down in the comments below.